Bonjour à toutes, bonjour à tous. This is Patrick George, and I'm very excited to be part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Growth Officer at Globe Teleservices. While the podcast has been around for a while and thankfully gaining a lot of industry traction, for those dropping by for the first time, this podcast takes you behind the scenes of the fast-paced world of telecom and showcases the human side and the inspiring journeys of some of the most well-known individuals within the space. Well, speaking about well-known, today's guest hardly needs any introduction. Having been in the telecom space for over 2 decades now, this individual has been everywhere and seen it all. He was part of the senior leadership team of some very well-known organizations in our space, including BICS, Cineverse, iBASIS, and Tofan Global. He has collaborated as consultant to Orange International Carrier Services and PCCW Global as well. He has worked in network, marketing, product management, strategy, and is acting as a business angel in biotech and startup around his beloved hometown Liège. However, from a human perspective, he is most popularly known for always speaking his mind, something which I'm really looking forward to in our conversation today. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Patrick George, Group Chief Strategy Officer at iBASIS. Patrick, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Hello, Anurag. Hello, everybody. I'm speaking. Actually, I'm in Liège, my hometown. Liège is in Belgium, in the east side of Belgium, the French-speaking side of Belgium, but very close to the German border, the Dutch border, the Luxembourg border. So for us, crossing border is a kind of day-to-day, you can say, attitude.
Wonderful, Patrick. So I guess you traveled all around the world, but life comes full circle and you are where you have originally come from. So wonderful to catch up with you today. Now, for our listeners, typically who've been listening to this podcast, you'll know that there is a typical format where we come to a section where we play a couple of games. But on Patrick's special request, because he believes that these games are going to impact the remaining conversation, I'm actually going to throw up the first question to him right now as one of the games. So, Patrick, we typically ask our guest to throw three statements towards me. And out of those statements, the expectation is two of them are truths, one of them is a lie. And I have to guess which one is a lie. And knowing you and your exotic background and such a diverse history that you have, would love to hear three very interesting statements. And I'd love for all of them to be true, but I'm hoping one of them is a lie. And I'll try and guess which one of them is a lie. So, would you have three statements for us today?
Yes, Anurag, yes. So the first one is my first boss was an astronaut who went to space inside the space shuttle Atlantis.
Okay.
My second one is I crossed the Atlantic Ocean using a 30-meter long catamaran.
All right. And the third one, Patrick?
The third one is I have performed for 3 weeks to play the Carmen opera from Bizet in a tour concert in France, inside a professional orchestra.
All right. Well, Patrick, I must say that for sure, I think the award for the best three statements, hands down, goes to you. We've had so many guests in the past episodes, but never come across such interesting statements. So, if you ask me, I'll say that while the first one seems a little unbelievable, but I'm gonna believe that's the truth. Similarly, the third one also, I'm guessing that given all your skills and capabilities, there is a strong chance that that's a truth as well. So I'm gonna go with the second one possibly being a lie because somehow it technically also seems a little too tough to believe that in a 30-meter catamaran you've crossed the Atlantic Ocean. So I'll believe that's a lie. So am I right out here?
You are totally right. You are totally right. I'm not a sailing person at all, but it was a kind of tribute to my good friend Nicolas Barret, who is absolutely fond of sailing. No, me, I'm not a sailor at all. So that's why this one is a lie. But truly, my first boss and we will discuss that maybe more extensively later. My first boss was Dirk Frimaut, the first Belgian astronaut who used to fly into Atlantis to go to space. And you will see also I played classical music for 20 years, between 5 and 25 years. And then somehow the peak of my musical career was that we play in a tour with an opera in France.
Wonderful, Patrick. So I think let's dive directly, especially into the first part. So I think we'll come to the musical part in one of the subsequent questions, I guess, when we talk about your passions and interest. But the very first question sort of connects with this first statement you had made. So we'd love to hear more about your journey. You know, how did you enter into the world of telecom? What has your history been like? And of course, now there is a very special twist of an astronaut playing a role in your life. So we'd love to know more about your journey, your career, and how have things been, and how have you reached where you are today?
Yes. So how did I end up in telecom? I always had a lot of passion, but three huge passion when I was young. It was the music, it was the history, and I wanted to be an engineer. So I had to choose when I was 16, 17 about which one to do, and I chose to be an engineer. So being engineer by study, IT engineer by study into telecom. And then all that did end up in telecom is really, you need to provoke your luck, you know. And that's why this astronaut, Dirk Frimaut, play a big role. When I was in my last year at university, it was in February. I was supposed to be graduated only 4 months later. And I got on the wall of university a paper to say that our Belgian astronaut, who is a superstar in Belgium, wanted to recruit young engineer, but it was urgent for his R&D department at this time was Belgacom, so now called Proximus. And then I was super excited. I made my resume very fast because I said, maybe I can meet the guy, you know. That was my only goal, to meet the guy. I was not that interested to go to work for a phone company because my point was, okay, the phone was already invented 100 years ago, so nothing very sexy about that. So, but okay, let's go, let's apply, you know, and maybe I will have an interview and I will see the guy. And then what happened is there was a new CEO in Belgacom at that time. He stopped the hiring for 100 days to make his view on the company. And then the day of my thesis, I received a phone call from Belgacom to ask me if I was still interested to apply for a job over there because I applied 4 months ago. I didn't get any news. And I said, of course, I'm interested. So 4 days later, I met the guy and I made the interview. And 10 days later, I got my first contract. And then I began to work 3 weeks later. And my first job with him was to coordinate in 1995 a teleworking project on ISDN, you know. And so you can say that I'm a visionary, but to work in teleworking in 1995, but I had to have a worldwide pandemic to prove that I was right, you know. So that's a little bit sad, but now teleworking, I guess, is part of a day-to-day life for each of us. But in 1995, it was quite new.
I can believe that even today, you know, so many organizations are still not totally into that mode. So back in 1995, I mean, that is really quite visionary.
Yes, I mean, I was not the one to create the project. I was the one to run the project, but my boss and, you know, find the topic that was interesting. And Dirk Frimaut was an amazing guy because he looked like the professor in Tintin, for those who know that. Tintin is the famous comics. But the guy had a lot of view about how to do management, you know, a very different way of what was an incumbent just out of the States in terms of state monopoly in 1995. And he really wanted to have a different way to manage the people. So I really enjoyed this beginning of the career. It was great, fantastic intellectual environment. And that's the way I jumped there. Then the way I moved different function into the national incumbent of Belgium. And then in 1999, I quit to go to a small NSP, network service provider, who was the first to introduce MPLS in Europe. And then the guy who hired me was fired before I joined the company. So I had to work for somebody who didn't choose me and I didn't choose. And it didn't go well. So after 5 months, the guy I was fired, in test period. And again, it's you need luck, and that was the moment where I rebounded, and I entered into international wholesale back in 1999. After this bad experience, I was hired by GTS, who used to be the first carrier in Europe, running on the fiber from the railway, Hermes, and introducing the first IP in Europe with eBone. And that was 2 fantastic years. And then it was the end of the bubble. The company was acquired by KPN Quest, and the company went bankrupt 2 weeks after the closing of that transaction. So I just quit the day of the closing, but it was also a kind of experience. And then I had the pleasure to join BICS for 9 fantastic years. I was the head of the transport network for engineering operation and field operation for 4 years, where we were extending the network from 8 POP to 120 POP. And then Daniel Kurgan at the time asked me to join the management team, to be in charge of product and marketing. And that was the time where we developed all the first GRX, the messaging, where BICS was moving from 5 million EBITDA to 120 million EBITDA with the Swisscom acquisition and MTN acquisition. So really an amazing period with amazing people. And you will see people is something very important for me. So then after 9 fantastic years in BICS, Cineverse wanted to hire me to help them just after the Carlyle acquisition to grow outside of North America. So together with my friend Nabil Bakouche and Dimitri Repinek, we try to help them to develop outside of the North America, to change the way to do business, to create a consulting arm for them. Again, 3 very intensive years. And then I decide to become more independent and to become an independent consultant in 2013, sorry. And then Alexandre Pébereau, who was running Orange International Carrier, of which I used to be one of the beloved competitor, asked me to help him to strengthen this product management organization as a consultant. So I worked with Alexandre for 6 months. We get very well together. Could not continue to work for Orange because I was just a consultant. And then Mark Halfinger from PCCW made me the pleasure to ask me to help him to build a mobile services portfolio. And then I spent 3 years at PCCW to help Mark and also with my other friends, Carlos da Silva, to try to build this portfolio. And then I had my medical break. So I got a cancer in 2015. One which is well cared, but still. So I had a medical break for 9 months. And I can say that Mark Halfinger and the team was absolutely fantastic humanly for me on that time to support me during this period. I can say it was like being in a family, so those guys gave me a lot of support. And then when I came back from my sick leave, priority has changed inside PCCW. They focus on other segments than the mobile. And then I moved my way out. Then you see also the people, the friends are there. Isabelle Paradis hired me for some consultancy while together. And then Alexandre Pébereau in the summer 2017, Alexandre Pébereau called me to say, Patrick, when we were together, we discussed about we need an independent player on this industry. And when Alexandre left Orange, he has this vision that he had to go out of Orange to build his independent player. And he phoned me in a Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. in August 2017. So, Patrick, I spoke with you about this project. I always said that I want to do that with you. And if you are still interested, the moment is now. So I say, of course, yes, Alexandre, great idea. When do we begin? We begin now because we have something to send by 6 p.m. tonight to KPN. It was to acquire iBASIS at that time. And then since then, we have our journey. We made our 7 acquisition of Toffee, and I put my savings into this project and working with friends like Nicolas Barret, like Edwin van Ierland, and with Alexandre. And we are in this journey now since 5 years and a half And our little company continues journey. We made 7 acquisitions, the latest one being DIMOCO Messaging in Austria, run by Cameron Calof and Anton Schmelar. And so that's where am I. I'm very happy because my current job proposed me to get together my two of my, you can say, important points. I like to be independent. I like to be an entrepreneur. And international wholesale is my playground since 1999. And all of you who know this industry know that it's a people industry where we know each other. We are all competitor, partner, supplier, friends. And I really love this industry.
Wonderful. So that's quite a stellar career. You've mentioned so many leading individuals and personalities from our space, and it's amazing to see that how much you've achieved and such a diverse background you've had. And it's also quite heartening to know that you've been a cancer survivor and you are living to tell that tale. So, you act as a source of inspiration as well to all the listeners out here. But that's a fantastic journey, Patrick. I mean, by far, among so many guests that we've had, you've definitely had a very, very interesting and diverse background. And within this rather within this long journey, if I ask that, say, one moment which has been a very, very impactful or a watershed moment in your career, what would that be?
First one on a personal note is my time in Belgacom. This is where I met my wife, who was also working at Belgacom at that time. So this was a very important moment for my day. And I would say it's difficult to choose for the most impactful moment of my career. It's either my big time or my Tofane time. I guess it's my Tofane time because it was bringing together, as I said, this entrepreneur willingness to become an entrepreneur together with my favorite playground. You know, those days where with Alexandre, we were in the same week, we were able to convince both KPN to sell us iBASIS and Altice to sell us Altice International Wholesale. We did the 2 deal in 4 days, which nobody expect. And that was a very exciting moment.
Wonderful. I can imagine. I think definitely jumping into the field of entrepreneurship for sure is something which is a very important and impactful moment for people. All right, so that's more on the telecom side. And now coming to the second section, which we call the human side. So, Patrick, you have told us already so many things, and many of those do appear very, very shocking. But if there is one thing about Patrick, which most of us in the industry or the listeners hearing this podcast don't know, what would that be?
That, I mean, I could have been a professional classical musician. Maybe I would not touch telecom in my whole life because I began to play music when I was 5. And between 5 and 25, I played a lot of music. I had about sometimes 16 hours per week of music. My instrument was percussion. I was playing orchestra in multiple orchestra, all classical. And then I made some piano for 6 years and oboe later. So music was very important in my life. Again, between 5 and 25, I played about more than probably 500 concerts over there, and I really enjoy it. So that's why, for those who see me in conference, usually I have zero stress to speak in public because I like it, and I was used to do that. So music was very, very important for me.
Interesting. So that's a completely different side about you, which I don't know how many people know. And our next question might just be interrelated, where I ask our guests that, what do you do to recharge yourself? What's your passion? So would it still be music, or do you have yet another passion also that you like to talk about?
Yes. First, my passion is about human being, about people. I'm a strange animal, maybe to a little come back a little bit. I'm a son of psychoanalyst and a psychology teacher, but I'm engineer by study. So since I'm born, the discussion we had at home was about people, always people, and that's for me the most interesting part of the world. So that's why I left quite rapidly the pure technology to go more into product, into strategy, into marketing, which is much more about people. That's why I love this industry, because it's a people industry. So how do I recharge? Is I recharge being with the family, being with the friends, and happily, even sometimes some of the friends are colleagues or people from this industry. And my passion today is paddle tennis. So I'm playing racket sport since I'm born. Really, I mean, since I was 5. My first sport was squash, then tennis, and now since 7-8 years I discover paddle tennis. So I'm playing. I try to play 3 times a week when I'm not on the road for the business.
Wonderful. So, yet another side of Patrick. So, other than his technical side, his entrepreneurial side, his musical side, there is also a sports element in Patrick. I'm just amazed. All right. So, with that, Patrick, we come to the second game which we play with our guests. So, I'm going to put up a couple of words to you. And for each of those words, we'd love to hear what's the first thought that comes to your mind. So, are you ready for that?
Yes.
Wonderful. So, the first one is the industry we are all operating in, telecom.
So here by accident, and second love of my life next to my wife.
Wonderful. So well said. All right. The next one is motivation.
Passion. Passion for people.
All right. The third one is something related, family.
This is the foundation. So that's why, for example, I always refuse to relocate, because I want my family to have a stable place, and then me, I'm traveling over the world. But family, it's the most important.
And Patrick, given all the diverse interests that you've shown, is anyone in your family pursuing further a career in telecom or entrepreneurship or something? I mean, basically, is anybody following in your footsteps?
My daughter is studying intrapreneurship. She do a master in intrapreneurship. So maybe she will not do telecom, but because she's more about saving the planet. Well, telecom is green, so I don't have any big issue about that. But better to do telecom. My boy is doing a sport teacher.
Yeah, so we do have an element of each. Huh? Your sports element fits in with your son, and your telecom, which is the green industry, fits in with your daughter. All right. And the next word is career.
Career, it's to do interesting stuff with interesting people. For the rest, it's I don't need to build an empire. I don't have to be the boss of whatever. I want to have an impact on what I'm doing with great people.
Wonderful. And since you say that on that last word, our next word is exactly that, people.
People, this is my fuel. I'm a hyper extrovert, so I take my energy from being with people. For those who don't know me in events, really, I stay late because I cannot enjoy more than to be with people, to exchange. We have the chance in our industry that we meet people from all over the world, but people who lived have open eyes to the rest of the world, So we can exchange and understand what the different culture, the different, you can see what's important for some people, what is totally forbidden for some others. So that's super enrichful.
Wonderful. And our final word, where we are today, podcast.
A podcast is for me a great tool when you are super busy like we are. It can help you to get information where you are the one mastering the timing. So then you can dig in some subject that interests you, and you typically our spare time in planes, in airport, in taxi, in train, all of that we can really value that thanks to podcast.
Absolutely. I totally agree. All right, that's some really interesting answers. And the last question of our section now is that over and above all these other things that you do, I don't know whether you find time or not, but are you into reading or watching movies? And if so, would you have a favorite book or a movie that you'd like to talk to us about today?
Yes, I'm not a book person. I prefer to discuss with people. So movie, again, I'm not a specialist in cinema, but I like movie where we have action and all of that. So Don't Nom de la Rose in French, The Name of the Rose with Sean Connery was a very interesting one. An old one, but still an interesting one. I just come out of the theater to see the movie of Oppenheimer. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. That's another fantastic one, ruling the charts all over the globe. And yeah, Sean Connery, I mean, a legend. I think any and every movie of his has always been a fantastic one. All right. With that, we come to our final section, Patrick. While I would love to go on, I'm sure the listeners also who are listening to this would love to keep hearing more about you. But those who would like to interact with you and discuss more about your interests in music or know more about your astronaut ex boss, what's the best way to reach out to you? And which are some of the conferences you're attending in the coming months where one can meet you?
So I will be in the Worldwide Congress in Madrid. I will be in the WAS in Croatia. I may pass by because it's the same week to Capacity Europe in London. So those one will be the three one. I am also a jury member of the Meucci Award, which will happen in Madrid, organized by M160. So this is for the short term, the one there. We can have a fix a rendezvous on the iBASIS catamaran into Honolulu for PTC. For those who've been there, I guess a place nobody forget during his whole life. So that will be the next one.
Wonderful. And I even remember seeing a couple of pictures of your iBasis summit, which happened, I think, sometime in June. And that seemed like a pretty amazing event as well. So I guess you guys are doing a lot in the industry, and it's interesting to see how you are personally contributing to it. All right. With that, we come to our final question, which is our signature question. What does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
As I said, human being is the most interesting stuff we have. Technology, you can solve it very often, but human being is very important. Health is key. We tend to forget that health is not a given. Health usually exists when you don't have it anymore. So everybody should realize how lucky we are to be in good health. That's very important. What sort of human being would I want the world remember as me? Somebody you can trust, somebody fair, somebody who care about people and who always respect the people. And somebody who has an easy life, because you have a lot of people suffering in this planet, while I can think even we work hard, I think we have a very easy life compared to them. So
Very true, as they say that one should always have an attitude of gratitude, and there is just so much that we have all been blessed with. But that's a fantastic conversation, Patrick. It has been interesting to hear so many aspects about you, and I understand that you have so much going on all the time, and yet you've taken out time for this podcast. I guess the name Humans of Telecom so well resonates with your personality and some of your thoughts, and I think it's been wonderful to have you as a guest. So, thank you so much for your time. And I do hope that amongst this plethora of conferences that you have, or maybe on the iBasis catamaran, at some point of time, we cross paths and I get to catch up with you further. Thank you so much.
thank you, Anurag. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. So, thanks a lot, Patrick. And to all our wonderful listeners here, as always, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Patrick George, an engineer who could have also been a classical musician, someone who has survived cancer and has also worked with a world famous astronaut, and finally, a person of the people, as I would call him, literally in his own words, someone for whom people are his fuel. That for us is Patrick George. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, do stay tuned in because, as always, we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.